Okay, folks, am I live? Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. This is Helena. I am coming to you from my home in the south of Dublin. I am in Monkstown at the moment. Let me know, can you hear me? Can you see me? Is everything okay technology-wise? I'll be looking for your comments. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. My name is Helena Byrne and I am a storyteller originally from the southeast of the country. I'm from Ballyhale in Kilkenny, but I'm now currently living and quarantining and lockdowning in the south of Dublin. I'm in Monkstown, very close to Dunleary to this side, and then the city centre is about 15-20 minutes in that direction. But what I want to do today is I'm going to tell you a few Irish folk tales. Some of them are a little bit on the creepy side. I hope that's okay with you all. And I'm going to sing a few songs as well, and I certainly hope that wherever you are, you're going to tune in and you're going to sing, and wherever you are. Oh, I see we've got Tom Drall from Germany here. Excellent. And oh good, we have Brent, of course, from the festival. Brent, thank you very much for letting me know that you can hear me. That is wonderful. So the first story that I'm going to tell you today is all about the Irish Fairies. Now, for anyone who has heard me tell stories before or is Irish themselves and maybe grew up in the countryside, I don't have to explain to you that the Irish fairies are nothing like Tinkerbell. They are nothing like the cute little cuddly sort of Disney characters that you would see sometimes. The Irish fairies were something that people feared and respected. Very similar to a lot of Scandinavian folklore as well, but we'll get into that later. But I'm going to share a story which is from the Great Blasket Islands, just off the west coast of Ireland, just off the coast of Kerry. Of course, the Blasket Islands is very famous because it had to be evacuated in 1953. Actually, it was the anniversary just yesterday of the evacuation because life was so difficult there. It gets a very tough time of it as well because, of course, those of you who are Irish and maybe went to school in Ireland in the 60s and 70s, I'm sure Peg Sayer was just the bane of your life. Peg Sayer, of course, was from the Blasket Islands, but she was a wonderful storyteller. And this story is from the Great Blasket Island. And it's all about a girl named Bridget. Bridget was about 20 years of age when all of this happened. She was a beautiful young girl. She had long brown hair, striking brown eyes. Her family adored her, and she adored them equally as much. So she would help around the house as much as she could. She would help her father when he got back from fishing. She would help clean. She would help with her siblings, whatever needed to be done. But one November morning, she decided to be a little extra helpful, and she left the house before sunrise to get some water from the well. Now, it was a typical cold November morning with a wind that would just cut right through you. I mean, it would bring tears to your eyes. I don't have to explain that one to anybody who's in Finland. I've been in Finland in the winter time, so I know what you're dealing with over there. So it was incredibly cold, but she fought her way through the wind. She got to the well and began to lower the bucket to the water. But suddenly, a gust of wind knocked her off her feet and she hit her head on the stony ground. When she woke up, she was dazed. She looked around her and she could see the well. She could see the trees and the fields that were all familiar to her. But the air was different. That cold November wind had been replaced by a very gentle breeze. Daffodils were swaying from side to side. And then Bridget saw a large crowd of people gathered around a huge blazing fire, and she felt drawn to them and began to walk towards them. But as she got closer, she started to realise that each and every one of them were fixed on her. Not blinking, just staring at her in complete silence. And just before she turned to run, the most handsome man you could possibly imagine broke through the crowd. I am talking better looking than Colin Farrell. He was tall and strapping with a red sash across his chest and beautiful curly blonde hair and blue eyes. He didn't so much walk towards Bridget as he sort of strutted like this. And he said, "Good morning, Bridget. Would you care for a dance?" Now, I know I'm not the only woman who would say this, that when there's a really handsome man speaking to you and you get all giggly and jiggly, that's what happened to Bridget. And she just said, "Oh, all right, so." The prince gestured to some musicians on his side and they began to sing. "Tá macree ag thou sa macree, macree ag thou sa macree." And Bridget thought, God, that's better than Beyonce. They began to dance, and they waltzed and waltzed in the sunlight and the breeze, and the crowd cheered and laughed, and Bridget lost herself in the beautiful music and the charm of her prince. She felt like she was dancing on air until the music stopped. Her prince thanked her for the dance and then said, "You must dine with us." With that, Bridget saw a large opening in the ground appear, with steep stone steps leading down to the other world. The prince took her hand and began to lead her down, and with each step, his lantern cast dark, menacing shadows on the stone walls. At the end of the stairway, there was a large hall, all bright and beautiful with gold and silver lights, and a large table filled with the most delectable food, cake and fruits and breads and all sorts. And at each setting was a large goblet filled to the brim with wine. All of the guests sat at the table, and once again, all eyes were on Bridget. Her prince said, "You must taste our fine wine." Peer pressure. Bridget took the goblet and began to raise it to her lips. But just before the first drop of wine hit her lips, an old, grey-haired man brushed past her and whispered in her ear, "Eat no food and drink no wine, or you will never reach your home again." Bridget placed down the goblet. She looked to her prince and said, "Thanks, but I'm not thirsty." With this, all of the guests' postures began to change. Their shoulders crept up, making an old, creaky, leathery sound, and then a dark, witch-like woman slithered towards Bridget and said, "Whoever comes to us must drink with us." Well, with this, Bridget felt two hands wrap around her shoulders, two hands wrap around her ankles, and the witch-like woman held the goblet of wine to Bridget's lips. But suddenly, the grey-haired man grabbed Bridget's hand, pulled her away, and up the stairs to safety. In a hurry, he said, "You're safe for now, but take this Blackthorne with you and keep it until you reach home so no one can harm you." She took the little branch of Blackthorne, she thanked him, and then she began to run as fast as she could through the fields towards home. As she ran, she could hear footsteps pacing behind her. She got home, she slammed the door shut, and she sat at the fireside, still clutching the Blackthorne. She could hear the fairy prince calling her name, and that that beautiful music rolling down the hillside. Exhausted by fear, she fell into a sound sleep. For the rest of her days, Bridget kept that piece of blackthorn at all times, and the fairies never carried her away again. But every November, as the sun would set, she would hear that fairy prince calling her name and that beautiful music rolling down the hillside. Tá macree et thou sa macree et thou sa macree. So the moral of the story is, do not run away with the fairies, even if they're as good looking as Colin Farrell. And that is the story of Bridget in the Blasket Islands. And of course, just to mention to you all, you might see this very plain looking piece of wood that I have here. This is of course blackthorn, and just a few weeks ago it was all covered in slowberries, which look kind of like blueberries. Now it's fine to actually pick this. It's not the same as a fairy tree, which is white thorn. Do not pick it, the fairies will come after you. But you can actually take this and it will prevent evil from coming into your house. Apart from November 11th, that's when the fairies aren't so kilt about you actually picking. And a traditional Irish drink that you can make from the slow berries is sloe gin, which is going to be ready for Christmas. So if we're not in COVID lockdown, if anybody wants to pop over to Dublin and have a little bit of sloe gin traditionally made, give me a shout and come on over. So, is everybody enjoying the show? Let's see, who have we got here? I see there's a few comments coming in. Oh, we've got somebody, Granny Annie from Newtown. That's a great Facebook name. Hello from Tipperary. Greetings from Oulu. Moi moi, hey hey. And Orla McGovern, hello, hello, hello. And we've got Daniel Herrera, who just says, fantastic. But he doesn't tell us where he is. He's so mysterious. I love it. Well, I think it's time for a song. And the song that I'm going to sing for you is called Colcannon. It's a traditional Irish folk song, one of those Irish folk songs that has kind of been forgotten throughout the years. So I like to throw it in there every now and then and just remind people of it, because it's a nice chirpy Irish folk song. And Colcannon is a very traditional Irish dish. It's made with potatoes, cabbage, onions and butter. It has to be Kerrygold butter, and it has to be about 70% butter to make it the right way. So it's tasty, but you know, it's not great for the heart, but who cares? So anywho, this is Colcannon, and I hope you enjoy it, and do give me a shout in the comments. Let me know how you're getting on. All I can see is a camera. I don't know if there's anybody out there, so do say hello. Well, did you ever eat Colcannon when 'twas made with yellow cream, and the kale and praties blended like a picture in a dream? Did you ever make a hole on top to fill the melting lake of the clover flavoured butter that your mother used to make? Oh, you did, so did he, and so did I. And the more I think about it, sure, the nearer I'm to cry. Oh, weren't them the happy days when troubles we knew not, and our mothers made Colcannon in the little skillet pot? Well, did you ever take potato cake and box tea to the school, tucked underneath your rockster with your books, your slate and rule? And when teacher wasn't looking, sure great big bite you'd take of the creamy flavoured, soft and melting sweet potato cake. Oh, you did, so did he, and so did I. And the more I think about it, sure, the nearer I'm to cry. Oh, weren't them the happy days when troubles we knew not, and our mothers made Colcannon in the little skillet pot? Well, did you ever go a-courting boys when evening sun went down, and the moon began a-peeping from behind the hill a-down? And you wandered down the boreen where the Cluracombe was seen, and you whispered love and praises to your sweet and dear Colleen. Oh, you did, so did he, and so did I. And the more I think about it, sure, the nearer I'm to cry. Oh, weren't them the happy days when troubles we knew not, and our mothers made Colcannon in the little skillet pot? is Colcannon. Nice chirpy song. I like that because a lot of Irish folk songs, they do tend to be on the sad side. So I like throwing that song in sometimes. Who do we have? We've got Eamon Keenan. Hello, Eamon. We've got Nora Karjalainen. Is that right? I hope. My Finnish, when I was living in Finland, in Helsinki many years ago, I didn't get very good at it because every time I tried to speak it, the Finnish people would speak back to me in English. So I took that as a good sign, just stick to the English. We've got Orla, you love Colcannon as well, excellent. And thank you, Christina, Ian Tucker, Mila Mahagot. Wonderful. It is time for another story. I'm going to take a little sup of tea before I tell this story. I hope that everybody else who's watching, I hope you've got an old cup of tea with you, or maybe something a little stronger. You know, I'm the one doing the entertaining. You should be relaxing on your couch, enjoying a whiskey or something. So talk amongst yourselves for just a moment. And hi, Justin. Hello, Justin Parks. Grand cup of tea. Excellent. Now, the next story that I'm going to tell, it's actually one that I sort of stole from my father. Now, my father's name is John, and this is a true story. This happened to John when he was about 12 or 13 years of age. My father grew up in a little town called Graignamanagh in County Kilkenny. And in the summer of 1969, he was at home from boarding school. And his mother told him that for the first time ever, he could go to the movies all by himself. And for a 13-year-old in 1963 in Ireland, getting to go by yourself to the movies, that's a big deal. So John headed down the country road towards Graignamanagh, and it's a beautiful summer evening. Birds are singing, the sun is setting, and John is just telling himself, oh, I'm so big, I'm so brave, I'm going to the pictures all by myself. He gets to the movie theatre, and the only movie being shown that night is Night of the Living Dead. Well, he's been telling himself that he's all big and brave, so he can't back out now. So he gets a ticket for the movie, and he goes into the theatre, and he watches the entire thing. It is like nothing he's ever seen before. There's blood, there's gore, there are zombies eating people, people killing zombies by whacking them over the head with a shovel, all sorts. He steps out of the cinema, and that lovely summer evening has been replaced by a very sinister summer's night. There's a full moon in the sky. And as John begins to make his way up the country road, there are no birds singing in the trees anymore. But every now and then, he can almost swear that something is rustling in the bushes beside him. He gets about halfway up the road when he hears a sound that he just can't ignore. It's the sound of heavy breathing to his left. Well, he turns to his left, and right there in the field is a creature about 5 foot tall, with horns protruding from the head, a long face, long torso, and 2 spindly legs, 2 eyes fixed on him. John doesn't know what he's looking at, but it looks just like the devil. And he knows he doesn't want to see it any longer, so he tears up the road towards home as fast as he possibly can. Weeks go by. John does not tell anybody about what he saw, but every single night he's peering through the curtains, expecting this demon devil creature to come and get him. Eventually, at the end of the summer, before going back to boarding school, he decides to pluck up the courage to investigate further. He walks down the dark country lane. He gets to the gate, peers over it, and right there, where he saw the devil is the donkey, stood facing him directly, with 2 ears protruding from the head, a long torso, and what could be mistaken for 2 instead of 4 legs. And that, hand on heart, is something that truly happened to my father when, like I said, he was about 12 or 13 years of age. And it all came up a few years ago when the opportunity arose for my parents to adopt 2 donkeys. My mother was all for the idea, but my father, for some reason, just didn't want to do it. And that story came out, which explained a lot. So there you go. That's the story of my father and the donkeys. So sometimes it might be a ghost, it might be the devil, it might be the fairies. Sometimes it might be a donkey. There are scientific explanations for things, sometimes. So who else have we got? Oh, we've got the Costa Rican rainforest. I think you win as being the most exotic viewer at the moment. So thank you very much, Daniel. And excellent. Oh, somebody else loves Colcannon. Wellmoo. That's a cool name, Wellmoo. Thank you very, very much. I hope that you're all enjoying it. I'm going to sing another song. Sure, why not? And this song was made famous by a lady named Delia Murphy many, many years ago, at the start of the century, I think. And it's called If I Were a Blackbird. It's a song that my grandfather used to sing. I'm pretty sure he sang it in a different key, but it was his party piece. So this is If I Were a Blackbird, and I hope you like it. I am a young maiden, my story is sad. For once I was courted by a brave sailor lad. He courted me strongly by night and by day, but now he has left me and gone far away. If I were a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing. I'd follow the vessel my true love sails in. And on the top rigging, I'd there build my nest. I'd flutter my wings o'er his lily-white chest. He promised to take me to Donnybrook Fair, to buy me fine ribbons, to tie up my hair. And when he'd come home, he would stay by my side. He would take me and make me his own bonny bride. If I were a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing. I'd follow the vessel my true love sails in. And on the top rigging, I'd there build my nest. I'd flutter my wings o'er his lily-white chest. La la da dum, la da 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 dum, la da 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 la da dum, la la da dum, la da 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 dum, la da 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 la da dum. And that's If I Were a Blackbird. And we have somebody from San Diego. Hello, Susan. Excellent. Mikhail Haikila. Haikila? Ooh, my pronunciation. It's snowing outside. Oh, I'm so jealous. Oh, of course, the end of the summer in Finland. Excellent. Well, tell you what you have in snow, we have in rain. So, well, I'm going to tell you another story. And this is just a short little story that my grandfather used to tell. My grandparents, I suppose, they're responsible for, they have a lot to answer for, because they did tell me quite a lot of things that traumatized me throughout the years. Oh, hello, Jackie. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you're enjoying the singing. Excellent. My grandmother, her name was Nancy, and she was the one that took it upon herself to tell me about the Banshee. And for those of you who don't know what the Banshee is, she was one of the Irish Fairies. And she was almost witch-like. She had long grey hair and grey skin and eyes that were red and bloodshot. But it was said that if you heard the Banshee keening or crying or wailing outside your house, it meant that somebody in the house was going to die in the near future. So it was not something that you wanted to hear. And of course, as soon as my grandmother told me that story, for weeks afterwards, every noise outside was the Banshee. as far as I was concerned. And I came back to her a few weeks later and I said, "Oh, Granny, I think I can hear the Banshee. I'm having nightmares." And she said, "Oh no, Helena, you're fine. If you hear the Banshee, it means somebody else in the house is going to pass away. So you're fine." So that's Irish parenting in a nutshell. I don't know if it's the same in Finland, but there you go. But this story is a story that my grandfather used to tell. My grandfather's name was James, and he was a farmer in Michael in County Carlow in the southeast of Ireland. So he worked incredibly hard. He was always out working in the fields, but he knew how to enjoy himself as well. You know, he was Irish. So every now and then he would meet up with some of the other farmers and they would play card games. And these card games could last for hours and hours on end. And on one of these nights, they met up in one of the neighbours' houses and they set up a table upstairs right above the kitchen. And they started playing poker. So they were bluffing, they were dealing, they were cashing in, cashing out. Everything was going particularly well for one man, Eddie. All of the luck was on Eddie's side that night. He was running away with the game until it got to midnight. Just as the clock hit midnight, a ruckus began in the kitchen right below them. There was banging, there was crashing, there was glass breaking and smashing. It sounded like there were 50 cows being milked right down in the kitchen below them. The men, they were sat at the table with the cards in their hands. They didn't even dare to move an inch until after about 10 minutes, the noise stopped. The men placed down the cards and they decided they better go downstairs, survey the damage done. And these were all strong, hardy farmers, but I tell you, they tippy-toed down the stairs that night. At the bottom of the stairs, they looked into the kitchen. To their amazement, not a single plate or cup or spoon was out of place. Everything was exactly as it had been before. Now this rattled the men quite a bit, so they decided, all right lads, let's finish the game, we'll head on home. So each of the men, one by one, began to leave, except for Eddie. Eddie was the last one to leave. He was there at the table, gathering up all his winnings, just delighted with himself. He skipped down the stairs, opened the front door, breathed in the fresh midnight air, placed his cap on his head and began to saunter through the courtyard. He reached the gate of the courtyard and he stretched out his hand for the latch of the gate. But another hand slithered onto his. But it was no ordinary hand. It was webbed and wrinkled and grey. Now, Eddie didn't know if this was a fairy or a demon or a spirit. He didn't want to know. He just pulled his hand away as gently as he could. He jumped over the gate, ran home as fast as his legs would take him. It took Eddie 20 minutes to walk to the card game that night. It took him 3 minutes to get back home. So that is my grandfather's story of the card game. I don't know if that was a fairy or demon or spirit. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but you know, maybe tonight when you're trying to get to sleep, just have a think about it and decide for yourselves. So folks, sadly, we are running out of time. In fact, I think I've gone over time, but I just had so much fun entertaining you. So I'm going to sing a teeny weeny bit of Molly Malone before I go, and we'll finish with that. And then I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the wonderful festival and all the great performers lined up. And hello to Rika Tikkanen. Correct? Yes, I hope. And you're in Lapland. Wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Here's a little bit of Molly Malone before I say goodbye. In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone, as she wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She was a fishmonger, and short was no wonder, for so were her father and mother before, and they both wheeled their barrows through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She died of a fever, and no one could save her, and that was the end of sweet Molly Malone. Now her ghost wheels her barrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. And that is my show. Gurav Mila Mahguiv Kitos. Thank you all so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Oh, thank you, Celine, for joining in. Excellent. I'm delighted that you enjoyed it. Farewell, everybody. And again, thank you so much to Brent and everybody at the festival for inviting me to perform. And thank you guys, more importantly, for tuning in. It's wonderful to have an audience and to hear from so many people from around the world. So, mwah, thank you. Kiitos.